Hey everybody, this is Danny Silva with D Silva Designs, and I have another speed sketch video for you. Today I'm going to be drawing Amora the Enchantress. She's from Thor, if you're not familiar. And this is a commission for my buds Mike and Alyssa. They ordered this and picked it up actually yesterday. They came to the Fan Alley Artist Lodge event that I was at, and they came and picked it up. I really appreciate it. It was nice to see you guys. Yeah, so this is done on an 11 by 14 mixed media piece of paper, and I've sped up this initial part of the video simply because it's really hard to see. I use a very light, super light blue col-erase pencil for my initial sketch because it's easy to erase. I've stated that in my other videos. And then I'll go ahead and refine the sketch further. So since you can't really see it, I went ahead and sped that up. The rest of the video is a little bit slower. So what I'm doing now is the col-erase pencil, the light blue col-erase pencil, is so light that more complicated areas tend to just kind of mix together and you can't really make them out. So for the dress or skirt or whatever that is, the costume, that piece of costume has a bunch of flappy pieces on it, and they tend to kind of blend together. You can't tell where one starts and one stops. So I'm using a regular blue col-erase pencil just for the darker areas. And I'll do that for, like I said, complicated parts of the costume, the eyes, just areas where the detail's a little bit tighter so I can see it before I ink it. I don't want to get confused. And then I'll go ahead and use my kneaded eraser. Sorry, I couldn't remember the name. And I just kind of roll that over the top just to lighten everything up a little bit more, because you don't want any of that showing through, especially once you color. If you start coloring with the copics, that just kind of seals it all in, which can be a useful technique for certain things. But if you don't want it to show, you need to make sure it's erased pretty well. And then what I'm doing, what you notice with the inking, when I started, I used a ink which is basically a mixture of fountain pen inks. I had some green and some red that I mixed together, and then I added some water to create kind of a flesh tone. And sometimes for the light, I don't know, if you want this certain look, which I kind of felt like doing on this one, I ink the flesh areas with that, so it's inked. You can see it that it's inked, but it's not overpowering. It's just a different look that I tend to do with some of my drawings. Just ink the different areas with different types of ink, and you'll get a little bit more separation. So after I've done that, I went ahead and just used my regular Pentel brush pen and done the black areas of the costume. As far as the flesh colored ink, I've seen a few artists do that. Bruce Timm is one. He'll do that a lot of times. You can just see different artists. Sometimes they'll ink a lot of the flesh tones with either a red or a brown or something, and I do that, I don't know, just when I feel like being a little bit different, or if you want the femininity of the piece to show through. It makes it look softer. Certain people like it, certain people want a really heavily inked design, so it just depends. Okay, and now that I've got most of the inking done, I'm going to go ahead, like I normally do, is with the flesh tones. I usually start with those and work my way up to the darker areas. I'll usually use 3 different flesh tones in increments. As long as they're very close on the color spectrum, they all work. You just need a darker tone, a mid-tone, and sometimes a lighter tone, just to blend it all together. You don't have to. You could. I mean, I've made do with 2. At least a dark tone and a light tone. Some people use light suntan. I use that sometimes. I can't remember the one that I'm using here. I think it's barely beige, maybe. Yeah, so That's what I'm going in, and you can see that how it blends really nicely with the inked part that I use, the lighter, almost lipstick, natural lipstick color ink that I use to ink the flesh areas. Doesn't really stand out too much, doesn't create a harsh line, but you can see that it's there. And now I'm going in doing the hair. A trick to using, or to doing, I wouldn't say 100% awesome blonde hair, but a little bit more believable is it's brown. You got to use browns. You can't just go on with, I used to use like really golden yellows and things like that, and that does create a very saturated, bright look. But to get a little bit more realistic, then it's good to go with some type of brown base and then maybe a really soft yellow over the top of that to smooth it all together. And doing the green of the costume. And for that, the rule of thumb when I shade anything is just to pick out 3 tones that you're going to mix together. Test them on a sheet of paper before to see how well they go together, because if they're, even with copics, with any marker, but you know, with copics as well, even though they're very, very well done and there's a lot of shades of colors in the copic color spectrum, sometimes, you know, 2 colors that are very close by their numbering system don't always match up, and one will be a slightly more purple or you know, whatever the case may be, and it's good to test it. It could be the batch of the ink refill that I bought that time, or it could be anything, but it's good to test your colors right next to each other, and you'll be surprised, even if they're not in the same exact, you know, line of color, closely related to each other, then it could still work. What you're seeing is, as far as her power, I wanted to have, you know, it kind of glowing, have like a glowing effect. So you'll notice I added some yellow and some things to the dress portion, just because I want it to look like there's a shine. And then I realized that it didn't have enough contrast, so I added some more with that. And now what I'm doing here is I'm just adding a touch of color pencil to those flesh toned inked areas, just because it can be a little light, and I'll go in with a brown or a black or something just to beef up those lines a little bit, but I still don't want them to be extremely black and overpower the area. Otherwise it defeats the purpose of using a different type of flesh toned ink. And now I'm doing a simple background, just something to kind of make her pop out a little bit. And this is obviously just going to be a bust sketch, throwing a little bit of a border on her, and then I'll go ahead and darken up certain areas. And it's time for the highlights, which I'll just use a gel pen. Sorry, the light the day was shifting, so I had to shut the blinds there. But yeah, I'll go ahead and highlight different areas of the costume. And sign it, and we're done. Well, just want to say thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you have any questions, comments, anything like that, just feel free. If you want a commission, there's my info. Just email me, and I'll catch you on the next one. Take it easy.